Hello and welcome back. Winter is here, and while we are getting ready to stay warm, our houseplants are facing their own set of challenges. In this video, I'll reveal 5 big mistakes you might be making with your houseplants in winter, including one that could be damaging your plants without you even knowing. Plus, I'll share 2 extra tips at the end that can give your plants an even bigger boost this winter. So, why is winter such a tricky season for houseplants? The conditions inside our homes change a lot. Temperatures drop, the air gets drier, and natural light becomes weaker and less frequent. All of these changes can have a bigger impact on your houseplants. Unlike the growing season, houseplants enter a slower phase during winter. But even though growth slows, they're still alive and still need care. It's just that their needs change. If we treat them the same way we do in summer, we risk damaging or even losing the plant. Let's start with the first and probably the most common mistake: overwatering. If you've noticed yellowing leaves, soggy soil, or a strange smell coming from your plant's pot, there is a good chance overwatering is a problem. During winter, plants grow much more slowly and use less water. If we keep watering on a set schedule, the soil stays wet for too long. This causes the roots to sit in soggy soil, which eventually leads to root rot. And root rot is a silent killer that spreads quickly if it's not caught early. It's one of the biggest reasons plants suddenly wilt or drop leaves during the winter months. So, what to do? Water less often and only when the soil is dry. Stick your finger about an inch or 2 into the soil. If it feels dry, water it. If it's still damp, wait a few more days. Every plant is different, but most houseplants prefer their soil to dry out a bit between waterings in winter. Keep in mind that the top layer of soil dries out quickly due to indoor heating, but the soil below can still be wet. If you water based on that dry surface, you risk overwatering. Always check the soil below the surface to be sure. Remember, it's better to underwater than overwater. You can revive a thirsty plant, but saving one with root rot is much harder. Let's move on to the second mistake: sudden temperature changes and low humidity. These two often go hand in hand and together can seriously stress your plants. If you have noticed brown crispy leaf tips or sudden leaf drop, this could be the reason. Here is why it happens. In winter, we turn on the heat to stay warm, but that warm, dry air affects plants too. Heating reduces humidity, and since most houseplants are tropical, they need higher humidity to stay healthy. On top of that, plants near windows or doors are exposed to sudden cold drafts, which can shock them. This stress leads to browning leaves, curling, or sudden leaf drop. So, how do you avoid this? Start by keeping your plants away from direct heat sources like radiators, heaters, or fans. If your plants are near a window, make sure they are not touching cold glass, especially at night when temperatures drop. To increase humidity, use a humidifier. It's the most effective option. You can also group plants together or place them on a pebble trays with water to raise humidity around them. Plants thrive in stable conditions. Sudden changes in temperature or humidity are a recipe for stress. Next up is mistake number 3: fertilizing in winter. This might seem harmless, but it can actually do more harm than good. If you've noticed salt buildup on the soil or browning leaf edges, fertilizing could be the reason. And here is why. In winter, most houseplants slow down or completely stop growing. When plants aren't actively growing, they don't need extra nutrients. But if you keep fertilizing, the unused nutrients stay in the soil, building up over time. This can create a toxic environment for the roots, leading to brown tips, burnt roots, or even root damage. So, it's very simple. Stop fertilizing during winter. Most houseplants don't need it at all during this time. Instead, wait until spring when they start growing again. If you have a plant that's still actively growing in winter, like certain herbs or fast-growing tropicals, you can feed it lightly with a diluted fertilizer. But for most houseplants, no fertilizer is needed during the colder months. Remember, in winter less is more. Your plants aren't focused on growth, so feeding them can actually do more harm than good. Moving on to mistake number 4, repotting in winter. It might seem like a good idea to give your plants a fresh pot or more space, but winter is not the time to do it. If you've noticed your plant looking stressed after repotting, this could be the reason. During the colder months, plants shift into a more restful phase where their energy is focused on survival rather than growth. When you repot a plant, you disturb its roots, which forces the plant to use extra energy to recover. But in winter, they don't have that energy to spare. Instead of putting out new roots, they experience stress. On top of that, exposing the roots to cold air can cause shock, making it harder for the plant to adjust. The best option is to wait until spring or early summer when plants are in active growth mode. That's when they recover quickly from the shock of repotting. Of course, there are exceptions. If you notice root rot or if the plant is completely root-bound, you might need to repot right away. But for most healthy plants, it's better to wait. Now let's talk about mistake number 5, not providing enough light. This one can be tricky because it's not always obvious at first. If your plant's leaves are turning yellow, stretching toward the window, or growth has slowed to a crawl, lack of light could be the problem. During winter, the days are shorter and the sun sits lower in the sky, which means less light is coming through windows. On top of that, light intensity is much weaker than in summer. A spot that was perfect for your plant in July might be too dim in December. Without enough light, they weaken, stretch, or drop leaves. So, how to avoid this? The first step is to move your plants closer to a window, ideally a south-facing one, since it gets the most sunlight in winter. Clean your windows to let in as much light as possible, as even a little dust can block a surprising amount of sunlight. If natural light isn't enough, consider using a grow light. It's a simple solution that can make a big difference for your houseplants. Light is life for plants, and in winter they need all the help they can get. Now, let me share 2 extra tips that can help your plants thrive during winter. Tip number 1 is cleaning your plant's leaves. In winter, dust tends to build up on the plant leaves, and this layer of dust blocks the light your plants need to grow. Wipe the leaves with a damp cloth or give them a gentle shower. Clean leaves absorb more light, which is especially important during the darker winter months. I've also made a video on a homemade recipe for cleaning and shining leaves naturally. I'll leave a link in the description so you can check it out. The second extra tip is playing music for your plants. I know it sounds crazy, but music can actually support plant growth. I play music for my plants every day using a playlist specially crafted to encourage healthy growth. It's a simple way to give them an extra boost, especially in winter when their growth naturally slows down. I've tested this method for years and the results are clear: stronger growth, healthier leaves, and better overall plant health. So if you would like to try it, I'll leave a link to my Music for Plants playlist in the description. It's an easy way to support your plants and create a peaceful space for yourself at the same time. I hope you found these tips useful. If you have any questions or want to share your own winter plant care tips, feel free to leave a comment below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel for more plant care content. Thanks for watching and happy growing!